Dear King, uh, my dear King, um, sleep is exactly like a python. Those who wander in the forest of material life are always devoured by the python of sleep. Being bitten by this python, they always remain in the darkness of ignorance. They are like dead bodies thrown in a distant forest. Thus, the conditioned souls cannot understand what is going on in life. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Material life means being fully absorbed in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Out of these, sleep is taken very seriously. While asleep, one completely forgets the object of life and what to do. For the spiritual realization, one should try to avoid sleep as much as possible. The Goswamis of Vrindavana practically did not sleep at all. Of course, they slept some, for the body requires sleep, but they slept only about 2 hours, and sometimes not even that. They always engaged in spiritual cultivation. Nidrahara viharakati vichito. Following in the footsteps of the Goswamis, we should try to reduce sleeping, eating, mating, and defending. Text 21. In the forest of the material world, the conditioned soul is sometimes bitten by envious enemies, which are compared to serpents and other creatures. Through the tricks of the enemy, the conditioned soul falls from his prestigious position. Being anxious, he cannot even sleep properly. He thus becomes more and more unhappy, and he gradually loses his intelligence and consciousness. In that state, he becomes almost perpetually like a blind man who has fallen into a dark well of ignorance. Text 22. The conditioned soul is sometimes attracted to the little happiness derived from sense gratification. Thus, he has illicit sex or steals another's property. At such a time, he may be arrested by the government or chastised by the woman's husband or protector. Thus, simply for a little material satisfaction, he falls into a hellish condition and is put under the jail for rape, kidnapping, theft, and so forth. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The conditioned soul is sometimes attracted to the little happiness derived from sense gratification. Thus, he has illicit sex or steals another's property. At such a time, he may be arrested by the government or chastised by the woman's husband or protector. Thus, simply for a little material satisfaction, he falls into a hellish condition and is put into
Jail.
jail for rape, kidnapping, theft, and so forth. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Material life is such that due to indulgence in illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, and meat eating, the conditioned soul is always in a dangerous condition. Meat eating and intoxication excite the senses more and more, and the conditioned soul falls victim to women. In order to keep women, money is required, and to acquire money, one begs, borrows, or steals. Indeed, He commits abominable acts that cause him to suffer, both in this life and in the next. Consequently, illicit sex must be stopped by those who are spiritually inclined or who are on the path of spiritual realization. Many devotees fall down due to illicit sex. They may steal money and even fall down from the highly honored, renounced order. Yeah, we see that happening a lot. Then, for a livelihood, they accept menial services and become beggars. It is therefore said in the Shastras, Yan Maitanadi Gramedi Sukham Hitucham. Materialism is based on sex, whether licit or illicit. Sex is full of dangers, even for those who are addicted to household life. Whether one has a license for sex or not, there is great trouble. Bahu Dada Daka Bak. After one indulges in sex, many volumes of miseries ensue. One suffers more and more in material life. A misery, a miserly person cannot properly utilize the wealth he has, and similarly, a materialistic person misuses the human form. Instead of using it for spiritual emancipation, he uses the body for sense gratification. Therefore, he is called a miser. Text number 23. Learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path of fruitive activity because it is the original source and breeding ground of material miseries, both in this life and in the next. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Not knowing this, the value of life increases human creation. Yeah. Um,
Joachim.
sorry. Um, okay, we'll go back. Learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path of fruitive activity because it is the original source and breeding ground of material miseries, both in this life and in the next. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Not knowing the value of life, karmis create situations whereby they suffer in this life and the next. Unfortunately, karmis are very attached to material sense gratification, and they cannot appreciate the miserable condition of material life, neither in this life nor in the next. Therefore, the Vedas enjoin that one should awaken to spiritual consciousness and utilize all his activities to attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord Himself says in Bhagavad Gita 9.27, Yat karosi yadasnasi yat josi dadasi yat tapasyasi kontaya tat kurusva madarpanam. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. The results of all one's activities should be utilized not for sense gratification, but for the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord gives all information in Bhagavad Gita about the aim of life, and at the end of Bhagavad Gita, he demands surrender unto him. People do not generally like this demand, but one who cultivates spiritual knowledge for many births eventually surrenders unto the Supreme Lord unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Bahunam Janmanamante Ganavam Mam Prapadyante. Text 24. Stealing or cheating another person out of his money The conditioned soul sometimes or other keeps it in his possession and escapes punishment. Then another man named Devadatta cheats him and takes the money away. Similarly, another man named Vishnu Mitra steals the money from the Devadatta and takes it away. In any case, the money loses not only the money. Let's see. Then another man named Devadatta cheats him and takes the money away. Similarly, another man named Vishnu Mitra steals the money from Devadatta and takes it away. In any case, the money does not stay in one place, it passes from one hand to another. Ultimately, no one can enjoy the money, and it remains the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Riches come from Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, and the goddess of fortune is the propriety of Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The goddess of fortune cannot stay anywhere but by the side of Narayana. Therefore, another of her names is Chanchala, restless. She cannot be peaceful unless she is in the company of her husband, Narayana. For example, Lakshmi was carried away by the materialistic Ravana. Ravana kidnapped Sita, the goddess of fortune belonging to Lord Rama. As a result, Ravana's entire family, as a result, Ravana's entire family, opulence, and kingdom were smashed, and Sita, the goddess of fortune, was recovered from his clutches and reunited with Lord Rama. Thus, all property, riches, and wealth belong to Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 5:29. Bhoktaram yagitamasam sarvabhutam maheshwaram. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the true beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, and He is the supreme proprietor of all the planetary systems. Foolish materialistic people collect money and steal from other thieves, but they cannot keep it. They cannot keep it in any case. It must be um, say, foolish materialistic people collect money and steal from other thieves, but they cannot keep it. In any case, it must be spent. One person cheats another, and another person cheats someone else. Therefore, the best way to possess Lakshmi is to keep her by the side of Narayana. This is the point of the Krishna consciousness movement. We worship Lakshmi, Radharani, along with Narayana, Krishna. We collect money from various sources, but that money does not belong to anyone but Radha and Krishna, or Lakshmi and Narayana. If money is utilized in the service of Lakshmi, Narayana, not Lakshmi Narayana, Lakshmi Narayana, the devotee automatically lives in an opulent way. However, if one wants to enjoy Lakshmi the way Ravana did, he will be vanquished by the laws of nature, and whatever few possessions he has
Mhm.
will be taken away. Finally, death will take everything away, and death is the representative of Krishna. Text 25. Being unable to protect himself from the threefold miseries of material existence, the conditioned soul becomes very morose and lives a life of lamentation. These threefold miseries are miseries suffered by mental calamity at the hands of the demigods, such as freezing wind and scorching heat,
Hmm.
miseries offered by other living entities, and miseries arising from the mind and body themselves. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The so-called happy materialistic person is constantly having to endure the threefold miseries of life called Adi Devika, Adi Atmika, and Adi Bodhika. Actually, no one can counteract these three miseries, threefold miseries. All three may assail one at one time, or one misery may be absent in the other two.
And the other present.
And yeah, may be absent and the other present. Thus, the living entity is full of anxiety, fearing misery from one side or the other. The conditioned soul must be disturbed by at least one of these three miseries. There is no escape. So there's Adi Daivika, Adi Admika, and Adi Bodhika. Okay. Miseries due to this body, miseries due to other bodies,
Mm-hmm.
and miseries due to cataclysmic events. That's the meaning Adi Daivika, Adi Admika, Adi Bodhika. As far as transactions with money are concerned, if one person cheats another by a farthing or less, farthing is like very little bit of money, like a few dollars, like a few cents, they become enemies. This is called samsara dava nala. Even in ordinary transactions between two people, there is invariably cheating because the conditioned soul is defective in four ways. He is illusioned, he commits mistakes, his knowledge is imperfect, and he has a propensity to cheat. Unless one is liberated from material conditioning, these four defects must be there. Consequently, every man has a cheating propensity, which is employed in business or money transactions. Although two friends may be living peacefully together, due to their propensity to cheat, they become enemies when there is a transaction between them. A philosopher accuses an economist of being a cheater, and an economist may accuse a philosopher of being a cheater when he comes in contact with money. In any case, this is the condition of material life. One may profess a high philosophy, but when one is in need of money, he becomes a cheater. In this material world, so called scientists, philosophers, and economists are nothing but cheaters in one way or another. The scientists are cheaters because they present so many bogus things in the name of science. They propose going to the moon, but actually they end up in cheating the entire public of large sums of money for their experiments. They cannot do anything useful unless one can find a person, a person transcendental to the four basic defects. One should not accept advice and become a victim of the material condition. The best process is to take the advice and instructions of Sri Krishna or his bona fide representative. In this way, one can be happy in this life and the next. So, what are the four basic defects? One has a cheating propensity. One has
So one is being illusioned.
being illusion, right?
Okay, then he commits mistakes. His knowledge is imperfect, and then he has a propensity to cheat.
Right. Thank you. Text 27. In this materialistic life, there are many difficulties, as I have just mentioned, and all of these are insurmountable. In addition, there are difficulties arising from so called happiness, distress, attachment, hate, fear, false prestige, illusion, madness, lamentation, bewilderment, greed, envy, enmity, insult, hunger, thirst, tribulation, disease, birth, old age, and death. All these combine together to give the materialistic conditioned soul nothing but misery. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The conditioned soul has to accept all these conditions simply to enjoy sense gratification in this world. Although people declare themselves great scientists, economists, philosophers, politicians, and sociologists, they are actually nothing but rascals. Therefore, they have been born as Buddhas and Naradas in Bhagavad Gita 7:15. Namam Duskritina Mudha, Prapadyante Naradama, Maya Prita Jnana Asaram Bhavam Asrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Due to their foolishness, all these materialists are described in Bhagavad Gita as Naradamas. They have attained the human form in order to get released from the material bondage, but instead of doing so, they become further embarrassed by the miserable. Sorry. Due to their foolishness, all these materialists are described in Bhagavad Gita as Naradama. They have attained the human form in order to get released from material bondage, but instead of doing so, they become further embarrassed amid the miserable material conditions. Therefore, they are Naradamas, the lowest of men. One may ask whether scientists, philosophers, economists, and mathematicians are also Naradamas, the lowest of men. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead replies that they are because they have no actual knowledge. They are simply proud of their false prestige and position. Actually, they do not know how to get relief from the material condition and renovate their spiritual life of transcendental bliss and knowledge. Consequently, they waste time and energy in the search for so called happiness. These are the qualifications of the demons. In Bhagavad Gita, it says that when one has all these demoniac qualities, he becomes a mudha. Due to this, he envies the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, birth after birth, he is born into a demoniac family and he transmigrates from one demoniac body to another. Thus, he forgets his relationship with Krishna and remains a Naradama in an abominable condition, life after life. Wow,
Mhm.
what a terrible destiny that is.
Hmm.
Text 28. Sometimes the conditioned soul is attracted by illusion. I'm sorry, by illusion personified, his wife or her girlfriend, and becomes eager to be embraced by a woman. This
Thus,
thus he loses his intelligence as well as knowledge of life's goal. At that time, no longer attempting spiritual cultivation, he becomes overly attached to his wife or girlfriend and tries to provide her with a suitable apartment. Again, he becomes very busy under the shelter of that home and is captivated by the talks, glances, and activities of his wife and children. In this way, he loses his Krishna consciousness and throws himself in the dense darkness of material existence. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When the conditioned soul is embraced by his beloved wife, he forgets everything about Krishna consciousness. The more he becomes attached to his wife, the more he becomes implicated in family life. One Bengali poet, Bankim Chandra, says that to the eyes of the lover, the beloved is always very beautiful, even though ugly.
Mhm.
This attraction is called Deva Maya. The attraction between man and woman is the cause of bondage for both. Actually, both belong to the para prakriti, the superior energy of the Lord, but both are actually prakriti, female. However, because both want to enjoy one another, they are sometimes described as purusha, male. Actually, neither is purusha, but both can be superficially described as purusha. As soon as man and woman are united, they become attached to home, hearth, land, friendship, and money. In this way, they are both entrapped in material existence. The word puja lata upaguda, meaning being embraced by beautiful arms which are compared to creepers, describes the way the conditioned soul is bound within this material world. The products of sex life, sons and daughters, certainly follow. This is the way of material existence. Text 29. The personal weapon used by Lord Krishna, the disc, is called the Hari Chakra, the disc of Hari. This chakra is the wheel of time. It expands from the beginning of the atoms up to the time of Brahma's death, and it controls all activities. It is always revolving and spending the lives of the living entities from Lord Brahma down to the insignificant blade of grass. Thus, one changes from infancy to childhood to youth and maturity, and thus one approaches the end of life. It is impossible to check this wheel of life. This wheel is very exacting because because it is the personal weapon of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the conditioned soul, fearing the approach of death, wants to worship someone who can save him from imminent danger. Yet he does not care for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose weapon is the indefatigable time factor. The conditioned soul instead takes shelter of a man made God described in unauthorized scriptures. Such gods are like buzzards, vultures, herons, and crows. Vedic scriptures do not refer to them. Imminent death is like the attack of a lion, and neither vultures, buzzards, crows, or herons can save one from such an attack. One who takes shelter of unauthorized man made gods cannot be saved from the clutches of death. Wow, not very positive. Purport. It is stated, Harim vina naiva shritim taranti. No one can save himself from the cruel hands of death without being favored by Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Mam evaye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Whoever fully surrenders unto Krishna can be saved from the cruel hands of material nature. The conditioned soul, however, sometimes wants to take shelter of a demigod, man made god, pseudo incarnation, or a bogus swami or yogi. All these all these cheaters claim to follow religious principles, and this has become all this has become very popular in this age of Kali. There are many Pasundis who, without referring to the Shastras, pose themselves as incarnations, and foolish people follow them. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has left behind him Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Not referring to these authorized scriptures, rascals take shelter of man made scriptures and try to compete with the Lord. That is the present difficulty one encounters when trying to promote spiritual consciousness in human society. The
Mm.
Krishna consciousness movement is trying its best to bring people back to Krishna consciousness in its pure form. But the Pasundis and atheists, who are cheaters, are so numerous that sometimes we become perplexed and wonder how to push this movement forward. In any case, we cannot accept the unauthorized way of so-called incarnations, gods, cheaters, and bluffers, who are described here as crows, vultures, buzzards, and herons. Wow,
Mm.
pretty strong statement. Text 30. The pseudo swamis, yogis, and incarnations who do not believe in the Supreme Personality Godhead are known as pasandis. They themselves are fallen and cheated because they do not know the real path of spiritual advancement. And whoever goes to them is certainly cheated in his turn. When one is in this, thus, when one is thus cheated, he sometimes takes shelter of the real followers of Vedic principles. Brahmanas are those in Krishna consciousness who teach everyone how to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the Vedic rituals. However, being unable to stick to these principles, these rascals again fall down and take shelter from among uh, take shelter among Sudras who are very expert in making arrangements for sex indulgence. Sex is very prominent among animals like monkeys, and such people who are enlivened by sex may be called descendants of monkeys. Terrible.
So, Prabhupada is saying that in one way, we are descendants of the monkeys if we behave like them.
Yeah, well, it's like falling down completely from human form of life to an animal type of life.
Mm.
Uh, Being unable to stick to these principles, these rascals again fall down and take shelter among Sudras who are very expert in making arrangements for sex indulgence. Sex is very prominent among animals like monkeys, and such people who are enlivened by sex may be called descendants of monkeys.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So Prabhupada is saying in one way, people who are like rascals and like they who are like who follow the description as shown, they Prabhupada is like in a way supporting Darwin's theory that for the other people who are like nonsense.
Darwin's theory is nonsense. uh, he does not explain things properly. What Prabhupada is saying here is that um, by fulfilling the process of evolution from the aquatic to the animal platform, a living entity eventually reaches the human form. The three modes of material nature are always working in the evolutionary process. Those who come to the human form through the quality of sattva guna were camels in their last animal incarnation. Those who come to the human form through the quality of raja guna were lions in their last animal incarnation. And those who come to the human form through the quality of tala guna were monkeys in their last animal incarnation. In this age, those who come through the monkey species are considered by modern anthropologists like Darwin to be descendants of monkeys. We receive information herein that those who are simply interested in sex are actually no better than monkeys. Monkeys are very expert in sexual enjoyment, and sometimes sex glands are taken from monkeys and placed in the human body so that a human being can enjoy sex in old age. In this way, modern civilization has advanced. Many monkeys in India were caught and sent to Europe so that their sex glands could serve as replacement for those of old people. Those who actually descended from the monkeys are described in expanding their aristocratic families through sex. In the Vedas, there are also certain ceremonies especially meant for sexual improvement and promotion to higher planetary systems, where the demigods are enjoying sex. The demigods are also very much inclined towards sex because that is the basic principle of material enjoyment. First of all, the conditioned soul is cheated by so-called swamis, yogis, and incarnations when he approaches them to be relieved of material misery. When the conditioned soul is not satisfied with them, he comes to devotees and pure Brahmanas who try to elevate him for final liberation from material bondage. However, the unscrupulous, conditioned soul cannot rigidly follow the principles prohibiting illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. Thus, he falls down, takes shelter of people who are like monkeys. In the Krishna consciousness movement, these monkey disciples, being unable to follow the strict regulative principles, sometimes fall down and try to form societies based on sex. This is proof that such people are descendants of monkeys, as confirmed by Darwin. In this verse is therefore clearly stated, yata vanara jate. Thus, uh, vanara means monkeys, and jate, I'm not sure what it means. Okay, so text 31. In this way, the descendants of the monkeys intermingle with each other, and they are generally known as Sudras. Without hesitating, they live and move freely, not knowing the goal of life. They are captivated simply by seeing the faces of one another, which remind them of sense gratification. They are always engaged in material activities known as gramya karma, and they work hard for material benefit. Thus, they forget completely that one day their small lifespan will be finished and they will be degraded to the evolutionary cycle. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Materialistic people are sometimes called Sudras or descendants of monkeys. Wow, I didn't know that. Or descendants of monkeys due to their monkey like intelligence. They do not care to know how the evolutionary process is taking place, nor are they eager to know what will happen after they finish their small human lifespan. This is the attitude of Sudras. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, this Krishna consciousness movement, is trying to elevate the Sudras to
To the Brahmana
to the
Brahmana platform.
So, so the descendants of monkeys completely forget that they have to die, and they are very proud of scientific knowledge and the progress of material civilization. The word Gramya Karmana indicates activities meant only for the improvement of bodily comforts. Presently, all human society is engaged in improving economic conditions and bodily comforts. People are not interested in knowing what is going to happen after death, nor do they believe in the transmigration of the soul. When one scientifically studies the evolutionary theory, one can understand that human life is a junction where one may take the path of promotion or degradation, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:25. Yanti deva ratan devan pitrim yanti printrivrata bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti madhya jinopimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship ancestors go to the ancestors, and those who worship me, meaning Krishna, will live with me. In this life, we have to prepare ourselves for promotion to the next life. Those who are in the mode of Rajo Guna are generally interested in being promoted to the heavenly planets. Some, unknowingly, are degraded to lower animal forms. Those in the mode of goodness can engage in devotional service, and after that, they can return home back to Godhead. Yanti Madhya Jena Pimam. That is the real purpose of human life. This Krishna consciousness movement is trying to bring intelligent human beings to the platform of devotional service. Instead of wasting time trying to attain a better position in material life, one should simply endeavor to return home back to Godhead. Then all problems will be solved. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17, Shinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyam Daksudo Hi Abhadrani Vidunoti Suhit Satam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. A wonderful statement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the verse 1.2.17. One simply has to follow the regulative principles. There it is. Very, very simple. You have to follow the regulative principles. Act like a Brahmana. Chant the Hare Krishna mantra and read Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, one purifies himself of the baser material modes, tamoguna and rajaguna, and becoming freed from the greed of these modes can attain complete peace of mind. In this way, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead and one's relationship with him, and thus be promoted to the highest perfection. Siddhim Paramam Gata. Text 32. Just as a monkey jumps from one tree to another, the conditioned soul jumps from one body to another. As the monkey is ultimately captured by the hunter and is unable to get out of captivity, the conditioned soul, being captivated by momentary sex pleasure, becomes attached to different types of bodies and is engaged in family life. Family life affords the conditioned soul a festival of momentary sex pleasure, and thus he is completely unable to get out of the material clutches. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.9.29, Vishaya Kalo Sarvata Syat. Bodily necessities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, are all very easily available in any form of life. It is stated here that the Vanara, monkey, is very much attracted to sex. Even monkeys keep at least 24 wives, and he jumps from one tree to another to capture the female monkey. Thus, he immediately engages in sexual intercourse. In this way, the monkey's business is to jump from one tree to another and enjoy sex with his wife. The conditioned soul is doing the same thing, transmigrating from one body to another and engaging in sex. He thus completely forgets how to become free from the clutches of material engagement. Sometimes the monkey is captured by a hunter who sells its body to doctors so that its glands can be removed for the benefit of another monkey. In other words, another man. Thus, and all this is going on in the name of economic development and improved sex life. Yeah, getting the sex glands of a monkey so one can have better sex. In this material world, when the conditioned soul forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and does not care for Krishna consciousness, he simply engages in different types of mischievous and sinful activity. He is then subjected to the threefold miseries, and out of fear of the elephant of death, he falls into the darkness found in a mountain cave. Wow, scary. Purport. Everyone is afraid of death, and however strong a materialistic person may be, when there is disease and old age, one must certainly accept death's notice. The conditioned soul becomes very morose to receive notice of death. His fear is compared to the fear experienced upon entering a dark mountain, and death is compared to a great elephant. Wow. Text 34. The conditioned soul suffers many miserable bodily conditions, such as being affected by severe cold and strong winds. He also suffers due to the activities of other living beings and due to natural disturbances. When he is unable to counteract them and has to remain in a miserable condition, he naturally becomes very morose because he wants to enjoy material facilities. Text 35. Sometimes conditioned souls engage in exchange money, but in due course of time, enmity arises because of cheating. Although there may be a tiny profit, the conditioned souls cease to be friends and become enemies. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.8, Pumsastriya Matuni Bhavam Etam, Tayor Mito Yudaya Grantim Ahu, Ato Biha Chetra Sutakta Vitar, Janasya Moham Aham Mameti. The monkey-like conditioned soul first becomes attached to sex, and when intercourse actually takes place, he becomes more attached. He then requires some material comforts, apartment, house, food, friends, wealth, and so on. In order to acquire these, he has to cheat others, and this creates enmity even among the most intimate friends. Sometimes this enmity is created between the conditioned soul and the father or spiritual master, unless one is firmly fixed in the regulative principles. One may perform mischievous acts, even if one is a member of the Krishna conscious movement. We therefore advise our disciples to strictly follow the regulative principles. Otherwise, the most important movement for the upliftment of humanity will be hampered due to dissension among its members. Wow, Prabhupada is he's predicting
Yeah.
the predicament in which ISKCON can be a failure. Those who are serious about pushing forward this Krishna consciousness movement should remember this and strictly follow the regulative principles so that their minds will not be disturbed. There it is. Text 36. Sometimes having no money, the conditioned soul does not get sufficient accommodations. Sometimes he doesn't even have a place to sit, nor does he have the other necessities. In other words, he falls into scarcity, and at that time, when he is unable to secure the necessities by fair means, he decides to seize the property of others unfairly. When he cannot get the things he wants, he simply receives insults from others and thus becomes very morose. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is said that necessity knows no law. Oh, really? Necessity knows no law. When the conditioned soul needs money to acquire life's bare necessities, he adopts any means. He begs, borrows, or steals. Instead of receiving these things, he is insulted and chastised. Unless one is very organized, one cannot accumulate riches by unfair means. Even if one acquires riches by unfair means, he cannot avoid punishment and insult from the government or the general populace. There are many instances of important peoples embezzling money, getting caught, and being put in prison. One may be able to avoid the punishment of prison, but one cannot avoid punishment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, this should be a wake up call. We can never get away with any cheating, lying, or uh, surreptitious behavior with other people. But one cannot avoid punishment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who works through the agency of material nature. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Davi esagunamayi mama maya duratyaya. Nature is very cruel. She does not excuse anyone. When people do not care for nature, they commit all kinds of sinful activities, and consequently, they have to suffer. Text 37. Although people may be enemies, In order to fulfill their desires again and again, they sometimes get married. Unfortunately, these marriages do not last very long, and the people involved are separated again by divorce or other means. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated previously, every conditioned soul has the propensity to cheat, even in marriage. Everywhere in this material world, one conditioned soul is envious of another. For the time being, people may remain friends, but eventually they become enemies again and fight over money. Sometimes they marry and then separate by divorce or other means. On the whole, such is, on the whole, unity is never permanent. Due to the cheating propensity, both parties always remain envious. Even in Krishna consciousness, separation and enmity takes place due to the prominence of material propensities. Wow, that's a very sad statement. Even in Krishna consciousness, separation and enmity take place due to the prominence of material propensities. Text 38. The path of this material world is full of material miseries, and various troubles disturb the conditioned souls. Sometimes he loses, and sometimes he gains. In either case, the path is full of danger. Sometimes the conditioned soul is separated from its father by death or other circumstances. Leaving him aside, he gradually becomes attached to others, such as his children. In this way, the conditioned soul is sometimes illusioned and afraid. Sometimes he cries loudly out of fear. Sometimes he is happy maintaining his family, and sometimes he is overjoyed and sings melodiously. In this way, he becomes entangled and forgets his separation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead since time immemorial. Thus, he traverses the dangerous path of material existence, and on this path, he is not at all happy. Those who are self realized simply take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to get out of this dangerous material existence of God. Those who are self realized simply take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to get out of this dangerous material existence. Without accepting the devotional path, one cannot get out of the clutches of material existence. The conclusion is that no one can be happy in material life. One must take to Krishna consciousness. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. By thoroughly analyzing the materialistic way of life, any sane man can understand that there is not the least happiness in this world. However, due to continuing on the path of danger from time immemorial and not associating with saintly persons, the conditioned soul, under illusion, wants to enjoy this material world. Material energy sometimes gives him a chance at so-called happiness, but the conditioned soul is perpetually being punished by material nature. It is therefore said, Dandya Jane Raja Yena Nadite Kubaya. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 20.118. Materialistic life means continuous unhappiness, but sometimes we accept happiness as it appears between the gaps. Sometimes a condemned person is submerged in water and hauled out. Actually, all of this is meant for punishment, but he feels a little comfort when he is taken out of the water. This is the condition and
This is the situation.
with the conditioned soul. All the Shastras therefore advise that one associate with devotees and saintly people. Sadhusanga, sadhusanga, sarva shastrikaya. Lavamatra sadhusanga, sarva siddhihaya. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 22:54. Even by a little association with devotees, the conditioned soul can get out of this miserable material condition. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to give everyone a chance to associate with saintly people. Therefore, all the members of this Krishna consciousness society must themselves be perfect sadhus
In order
in
to.
order to give a chance to fallen conditioned souls. This is the best humanitarian work. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, time check.
Right,
Yeah.
I think we'll stop right there. And our takeaway from today is sadhusanga, sadhusanga, sarva shastrekaya, lavamatra sadhusanga, sadhusange, sarva siddhihaya. Even by a little association with devotees, the conditioned soul can get out of this miserable material condition. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to give everyone a chance to associate with saintly people. Therefore, all the members of this Krishna consciousness society must themselves be perfect sadhus in order to give a chance to fallen conditioned souls. This is the best humanitarian work. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Thank you, my dear devotees. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, well, Srila Prabhupada has summarized every let's say, uh, important uh, path to go back to Godhead. So if we simply follow Prabhupada's instruction, we will go back to Godhead, have eternal life with Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, is this the reason why we build temples and also we conduct all these outdoor events so that we have this sadhu sangha, Maharaj?
Yeah. It's fun.
Yes.
The conclusion is that no one can be happy in material life. One must take to Krishna consciousness. So therefore, to become happy, we must take to Krishna consciousness. That's why we're having festivals. That's why we're doing so many things to inspire our devotees to be happy in Krishna consciousness. Haribol. And sadhusanga, sadhusanga, sarva shastrikaya, lavamatra sadhusanga, sarva siddhihaya. Even by a little association with devotees, the conditioned soul can get out of this miserable material condition. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to give everyone a chance to associate with saintly people. Therefore, all the members of this Krishna Consciousness Society must themselves be perfect sadhus in order to give a chance to fallen, conditioned souls. This is the best humanitarian work. Okay, that is our real vocation in life. What is that? To give a chance to fallen conditioned souls. But, and what does that mean? What chance is that? A chance to associate with genuine devotees. Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sangha Sarva Shastri Kaya, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhihaya. Even by a little association with devotees, the conditioned soul can get out of this miserable material condition. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to give everyone a chance to associate with saintly people. Therefore, all the members of this Krishna conscious society must themselves be perfect sadhus in order to give a chance to fallen conditioned souls. This is the best humanitarian work. Haribol. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotee. And we should not associate with materialistic people, but we should associate with genuine devotees so that we can have their association. And the whole Krishna consciousness movement is trying to give everyone a chance to associate with saintly people. So, therefore, all the members of the Krishna Consciousness Society must themselves be perfect sadhus in order to give a chance to fallen conditioned souls. This is the best humanitarian work. Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
That is our takeaway for today. Haribol. Thank you.